Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Good to be here.
So today we're doing something, well, a little different.
Yeah, a bit of a departure for us.
Usually we're looking at the latest tech or, a historical event, but today we're stepping into a bit of a time machine.
And an ideological bubble, you could say. We're looking at the July-August 2025 issue of Communist Review.
Right. And for context, this isn't just like a newsletter.
No. This is the theoretical journal of the Communist Party. So this is the heavy machinery of modern Marxist thought in the UK.
And the date, mid-2025, that really matters.
Yeah.
In this timeline, Keir Starmer's prime minister, there's a Labour government, but things are
turbulent, extremely turbulent. And that's what makes this so fascinating. Like, whatever your politics are, reading a journal like this is like studying a map drawn by someone who sees the world completely differently.
That's a great way to put it.
They're looking at the same economy, the same environment, but the lines they draw between cause and effect are just radically different from what you'd read in, say, The Economist.
Exactly. And that's our mission today. We are not here to endorse this, but to act as translators.
To unpack the internal logic.
Right. How do they get from A to B?
Yeah.
Why do they think Amazon, the company, is proof that communism can work? And why is relaxing a sign of mental illness?
We've got a lot of ground to cover. Ecology, politics, psychology, even astrophysics.
It's a whole theory of everything.
Yeah.
So let's start with the cover story.
Okay.
Because when I think Marxism, I get a very specific image.
Smokestacks.
Smokestacks, yeah. Concrete. Huge factories. Sort of, man conquering nature.
The Promethean view, right?
Yeah.
Man steals fire from the gods and all that.
But this issue opens with a piece by Richard Hebert that just says, you've got that completely wrong. He argues Marx and Engels were the original ecologists. That feels like a rebrand, doesn't it?
It does feel like one, but Hebert argues it's actually a recovery of what was originally there. He's pushing back hard against that productivist label you just mentioned.
So how does he do that?
He digs up this 19th century concept called the metabolic rift.
Metabolic rift. I mean, that sounds like a bad sci-fi movie.
It really does, doesn't it? But it's actually about soil.
Soil. Yes.
And this is the insight. Marx was looking at 19th century agriculture, influenced by this German chemist, Justus von Liebig, and they saw that capitalism created a physical break, a rupture in the natural cycle of nutrients.
Okay, break that down for me. How does an economy break a nutrient cycle?
Well, think about how nature works. It's a loop, right? Plants take nutrients from the soil, animals eat the plants, waste goes back to the soil.
Triple enough.
But industrial capitalism breaks that loop. You grow food in the countryside, you ship it all to these massive cities, people eat it, and the waste. It pollutes the rivers instead of going back to the field.
So you get depleted soil on one end.
And massive pollution on the other. Liebig called it a robbery system.
You're robbing the soil.
You are, and you're never paying it back. Hebert's point is that this isn't an accident. It's structural. It's the separation of the town from the country.
Okay, so they're saying Marx saw this in the 1800s. But fast forward to 2025. We've got green capitalism now.
Right.
Carbon credits, USG scores, electric SUVs. Can't we just patch this rift?
They'd say absolutely not, a hard no. They're incredibly critical of that whole movement. They call it an oxymoron.
Green capitalism.
Yeah. The phrase they use is destructive creativity.
A play on Schumpeter's creative destruction.
Yeah, exactly. The argument is capitalism has one prime directive, infinite growth. It has to expand.
New markets, new resources.
And you just can't have infinite growth on a finite planet. It's simple physics. It doesn't matter if your factory runs on solar, if the goal is to just produce more stuff forever.
So if the Tesla model is out, what's the alternative? Are we all living in yurts?
Not yurts, no. They propose a concept called ecological civilization, which they credit to Chinese Marxist thinkers. It's a shift from dominating nature to coexisting with it. But the really radical idea here, and this is a big debate on the left, is degrowth.
Degrowth. That's a tough political slogan. Vote for us, we'll shrink the economy.
It is. But they cite a Japanese author, Kohei Saito, who argues degrowth communism is the only path. The idea is we're just making useless stuff to keep GDP numbers up.
Right.
A post-capitalist society wouldn't care about GDP. It would focus on time wealth.
So fewer gadgets, but you get your weekends back.
And the sky doesn't catch on fire. That's the pitch. They see our current system as just burning the house down to keep warm.
Okay, let's pivot from the planet to the political reality of their 2025.
Right.
Labor is in power, But the journal seems really worried about what's happening on the right.
Very worried. There's an article by C. Ritchie analyzing the rise of Reform UK.
And in this timeline, they've just won their 5th MP.
In Runcorn, yeah, and a mayor in Lincoln, so they're breaking through.
And the journal is trying to figure out why.
Exactly. And their analysis isn't about charisma or culture wars, it's purely material. They say it's because the Labour government has failed on the basics.
Energy prices, housing.
All of it. So they see this vacuum. A working class that's disillusioned, broke.
And into that vacuum steps reform with a very specific story to tell.
And the heart of that story is migration.
The flashpoint. So how does Communist Review handle that? Because it's a tricky subject.
They go on the offensive. Rishi's argument is that the small boats crisis is being weaponized. It's a classic divide and conquer tactic.
Look at the boat, don't look at your boss.
That's basically it. But they also do some, context checking. They draw a really sharp line between economic migrants and refugees.
Yeah.
And they list the drivers in 2025. Gaza, Sudan, Ukraine. Their point is you can't separate the people arriving from the wars that push them out.
But what about the economic argument? The one that says more people means lower wages and pressure on housing?
Yeah.
Do they just dismiss that as racism?
No, they address it head on. But they flip the causality. They say, look, migrants don't set wages.
Bosses set wages.
Bosses set wages. If your pay is low, that's a decision made by capital, not the person next to you on the building site.
And housing. That feels hard to argue. More people, more demand.
Same logic, though. They say the housing crisis is caused by decades of not building enough, of austerity and unscrupulous landlords hoarding property. Blaming a refugee for the lack of a flat is, in their view, just wrong. The scarcity is artificial.
So what's their fix? The previous government had the Rwanda plan.
Which they note was stalled by the European Court of Human Rights anyway. Their solution is actually pretty pragmatic.
Oh.
Safe routes. They argue the only reason smugglers exist is because there's no legal way to cross. If you set up processing centers, legal ferries, you put the smugglers out of business overnight.
You undercut the black market.
You remove the profit incentive. It's almost a market solution, ironically.
Okay, let's shift gears. The section I found most jarring, I think. An article by Alan McGuire.
Poverty of thought.
Yes. It moves from global politics to what's happening inside your own head.
This is the one that really sticks with you.
It redefines poverty. Not as a number, less than $2 a day or whatever, but as a stressful mental state.
It's a cognitive tax. This is the crucial bit. The source cites a study that claims the mental energy you use just to manage being poor.
Juggling bills, the fear?
The math you do in the supermarket, it reduces your functional IQ by 13 points.
The 13, that's huge. That's a standard deviation.
It's the equivalent of losing an entire night's sleep permanently, every single day.
So this completely reframes the whole poor people make bad choices narrative.
Oh, completely.
Why did they take that payday loan? All that stuff.
Right. And McGuire's argument is it's not because they're immoral or stupid. It's because their brains are in constant emergency mode. They literally don't have the cognitive bandwidth for long-term planning.
If you're drowning, you don't plan your swimming strokes.
You just thrash. Exactly. And that leads to this other concept, depressive hedonia.
This one felt uncomfortably.
Yeah, it hits close to home. It's a term from the theorist Mark Fisher. Hedonia is pursuing pleasure. But this is pursuing pleasure not for enjoyment, but as a distraction from anxiety.
Like doom-scrolling TikTok for 3 hours.
Or binge-watching a show you don't even like. Drinking to black out, buying stuff you'll never use.
It's pleasure as an anesthetic.
It's numbing. The journal argues that capitalism creates this high-stress, precarious world, and then it sells you cheap dopamine hits to numb the pain it caused.
A dark feedback loop.
Yeah. It suggests inequality isn't just about who has a yacht, it's about who has the mental peace to actually think.
Which means we're losing potential.
On a massive scale, if millions of people are running at a 13-point IQ deficit, what inventions, what art, what movements are we just missing out on?
Wow, we talk about lost productivity in hours, not in intelligence.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got a dying planet, divided politics, broken brains. Let's talk about the solution.
Right.
Because the journal gets into a very specific debate about how you'd actually run an economy. This is the Oliver Coxhead article.
This is the future of economics bit. And it tackles this old debate. Market socialism versus central planning.
Quick definitions.
Market socialism is basically keep the market, but let workers own the companies. worker co-ops.
Like Mondragon in Spain.
The classic example, and it sounds great, right?
Yeah.
It's democratic, it's dynamic.
So it's the problem.
Coxhead argues it's a trap. As long as you have a market, you have competition. And that forces even a worker co-op to be ruthless to survive. They end up having to cut their own wages or pollute just to stay competitive.
He calls it self-exploitation.
You become your own boss and your own slave driver. So he says you can't just change who owns the factory, you have to get rid of the market itself. He wants to go back to central planning.
Whoa. Okay. That brings up images of Soviet bread lines.
The calculation problem. That was the big critique from economists like Hayek. There's just too much data for a central planner to possibly handle.
It's impossible.
Well, this is where it gets wild. Coxhead says, yes, it was impossible. The Soviets were trying to run an economy with pen and paper.
And now we have
AI, big data, real-time tracking. And here's the kicker. He says we already have massive, successful, centrally planned economies. They just happen to be inside corporations.
the Amazon argument.
The Amazon argument. Think about it. Amazon or Sainsbury's, they don't use market forces to decide where to send a truck. They use algorithms to predict demand and allocate resources on a global scale.
So internally, Amazon is a command economy.
That is the argument. The source says the tools for a planned economy, the ability to match supply and demand perfectly, they already exist. They're just owned by Jeff Bezos and used to maximize profit.
So the idea is take the Amazon algorithm, but instead of optimizing for profit, you optimize for a social need.
That's the cybernetic solution. They believe technology makes the invisible hand of the market obsolete. You can replace it with the very visible hand of the algorithm.
This is a fascinating inversion. We usually see this tech as surveillance capitalism.
And they're framing it as the key to liberation. The infrastructure is ready. It's just under new management.
Before we wrap, I have to ask about the one that felt most out of place.
Yeah.
You were reading about poverty and politics, and then boom, black holes and Einstein.
Ah, yes. Kishore Kumar Thekadath's piece. It seems abstract, but it's pure philosophy. He's defending dialectical materialism.
The official philosophy of Marxism.
Exactly. He's arguing against idealist ideas in physics. You know, the whole reality depends on the observer thing.
The Schrodinger's cat vibe.
Right. The cat says no. He uses things like time travel paradoxes to argue that the physical world has objective, hard laws. You can't go back and kill your grandfather. Reality has a structure independent of us.
Why does a political journal care about that?
Because if the universe has objective laws, then for them, history has objective laws. And economics has objective laws. It reinforces their belief that Marxism isn't just an opinion.
It's a science.
They want to show that the same logic that governs a black hole also governs rent prices in London. It's a totalizing worldview.
And I guess that's the thread running through this whole issue.
Oh, yeah, it really is.
We've looked at ecology, politics, psychology, economics.
And physics.
But for the writers of Communist Review, these aren't 5 different topics.
No, they're 5 symptoms of the same disease.
Mm.
For them, the soil erosion, the anxiety, the rise of the right, the dominance of big tech, it's all just expressions of the class struggle.
And their optimism, if you can call it that, comes from this idea that the system is building its own replacement.
Exactly. The tech from Amazon is creating the tools for planning. The climate crisis is forcing a new relationship with nature. The ingredients for the future are sitting right in front of us. They just need a different chef.
It is a lot to take in. But I think the thing that's really going to stick with me is that psychology segment.
The 13 points.
Yeah, the 13 point. I mean, we talk so much about efficiency and human resources. But if financial stress is literally knocking 13 points off our collective IQ,
It really makes you wonder.
it does. How many sympathies? How many cures for diseases? How many great ideas are just being suffocated right now? Because the person who could have had them is too busy worrying about the electric bill.
And that's the question the journal really wants you to ask.
Well, on that note, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a trip into a completely different way of seeing the world.
Always a pleasure.
We will see you next time. Keep thinking.